So I think we can start this session about women in science. Yesterday it was the anniversary of Marie Curie. So we have a lot of contributors tonight. The first speaker tonight will be Valérie Archambault. And we had a visit in the library of the exposition about women in science by Amélie Dessin, the second. So the second name on the slide. Loïc de Villiers make us the pleasure to be with us. Also, Natasha Henry gave a talk this morning about Marie Curie. Alice Lebrigand is also with us. Nina Miolan will talk in the first part of so the third speaker, sorry. Maxime Rosniewski is also there from Fondation des Femmes. Olivier Schwander is also there with us, and myself. So the two contributions we had already today from Natasha Henry about the two books about Marie Curie and her sister Brownia. The exposition that is still available in the library today, and our first speaker, Valérie Archambault, which is Deputy Research Director for Corporate Relation at this school, Mines Paris Tech, École des Mines de Paris. Please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am Valérie Archambault, Deputy Research Director at Mines Paris Tech. And I'm delighted to be able to give this talk today on gender diversity in industry. Sorry. Yes. So I will start with an overview of the situation in higher education and in companies, and then I will say a few words about companies' motivation and area for action in favor of gender equality. So here you have a number of researchers in time. And of course, there are many other jobs in technical and scientific field, but I guess the number of researchers is a good indicator of scientific and technical activity, especially if you want to compare public and private sector, and this is what is done there. In pink, yes, in pink, you have a number of researchers in companies, and in orange in the administration. As you can see, since 2002, there are more researchers in companies than in the public, and in 2013, the companies employs almost 2/3 of researchers. So the question we have today is what is the proportion of women among these companies' researchers, and what is their situation? This is 20% in average in France, and indeed this is less than in the administration, where it's rather 35%. 20% is low, especially considering that in France 46 50% of scientific baccalaureate students are women, but then the next year it's only 29 and 25%, whether you go in preparation for engineering school or in the university. And then 29% of engineers are women, and 31% of PhD in fundamental and applied science are women. And then finally 20% in companies. Talking about PhD, I just mentioned the 31% in fundamental and applied science, but it's much more in life science and medical studies. And we find the same differences in discipline in companies. Here, the dot in this graph, the dot is the percentage of women according to each discipline. And again, you have average at 20%, but it's much more in life science or medical science, and much less in fundamental and applied science, around 15%. And the bar here, the orange bar, is the proportion of researcher, the company researcher, I'm talking about company only, the proportion of company researcher in this discipline, so the total makes 100. And here we see that fundamental and applied science employ around 80% of researcher. So for women, it's another bad news, because this is where the percentage is low. So in other words, the discipline which employ the most are the discipline where the percentage of women is the lowest. Another difference is in sector. So again, the 20% is an average, but there is much more women in percentage in in chemical companies or pharmaceutical, and much less in computer science and new technology or automotive sectors. And in these two sectors, it has even decreased in the 10 past years. And again, it's a bad news, because these two sectors are the first two in terms of employment. Apart from percentage, women are paid less, around 20%. In engineering, it's even more. It's in France about around 31. Just 1 year after PhD, the difference is quite low. It's only 5% just after the PhD. And in terms of responsibility, a woman has less chance to become a manager than a man, and there is not too much women at top position. Actually, in France, the situation has drastically changed since the so-called Copé-Zimmermann and Sauvadet laws. And the rate of women in boards of directors has tripled in 6 years, which is really very good progress. And now France is the first country in Europe on this criteria. So now I will switch to the company's motivation and area for action, and this will be based on Sophie Pochik research work. Sophie Pochik and her team analyzed 186 corporate agreements, and this was randomly chosen and a so-called representative sample of very different companies of different size, with different negotiation practices, different rate of women, and so on and so forth, and different sectors. And in this text, she found 3 main motivations for company to commit to equality between men and women. First one was to respect the law and avoid penalties. Obviously, is connected to the so-called Copé-Zimmermann and Sauvadet law. Second reason is it's good for business. This is what we call the business case, because diversity and gender diversity in particular is good for creativity, for efficiency, and it's also the idea that we need women to design product for women, like we need Chinese in a project to design product for the Chinese market. So this is the second reason. And the third reason is more specific to the company because of its historical or cultural characteristic. So these were the three main motivations found in the text, in the corporate agreement. And now about the area for action, Sophie Poschik found 4 kinds of action. First is hiring more women, and here the objective is to be at least in line with a percentage of, with a rate of women in technical and scientific education. Second area for action is making it easier to combine work and family life. Third is encourage career development of women, but we must say that for this, this is mainly for big companies. She didn't find this kind of motivation in smaller companies, and this is really thought for top-level management and not for all women in the company. And the fourth is decreasing gender wage gaps. But we must say here that there are very rarely special budget to do so, and it's more answering the claim and treat really significant gaps. Apart from this agreement, corporate agreement, there are many, many initiatives. I just received yesterday something from Schlumberger, which I just copied in my slide. And there's a famous woman in science from L'Oréal. Here you have a lot of different networks between different companies or association. Like I belong to the Femmes et Sciences, Women in Science French association, and all these initiatives networks are aiming to promote scientific women and to promote science to women, especially young women, to encourage them to start study science and have a technical career. And for instance, the association I know well because I work with them is Femmes et Sciences. We go and visit high school students to tell them about what is our job, and how exciting it is to work in science, in research or innovation, and how useful it is. So I think it's a way to change some mentalities and make them discover this kind of job. Thank you for attention.